He is a legend of the game, a champion many times over, but coming up in January, he finally gets to go home again. The Philadelphia legend himself, the Underground King, Eddie Alvarez. Eddie, how are you?
What's up, Damon? Always good to see you, brother.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking time for me as always. It's funny. When I got word this fight was happening, I knew, Dave Feldman told me they were going to Philadelphia. And I was like, well, of course, Eddie Alvarez is going to fight on that card. I didn't realize it had been 14 years. Like, I just associate you with Philadelphia so much that I didn't think it had been 14 years since you fought there.
Yeah, I begged and pleaded throughout my career, like whatever promotion I was with, to kind of please, man, take me home. Like I'm such a draw there. We'll sell out whatever stadium we're in, and they just never. No, nobody's ever seen the go. Even when I won the UFC world title, and it was like, damn, man, come on, can you guys take us home? And it just never came to fruition. Bellator got me there once. I fought Roger Huerta at the Leah course back in like 2014 or something. And it was a sellout crowd, awesome show. But finally we're back, baby. KFC.
Absolutely. What's wild is like nowadays we think about countries who get behind an athlete. Of course, we all remember, Conor with Ireland and England with Bisping. And obviously we see this now with like Ilia Topuria in Spain. You were like the one guy who had like an entire city behind him. Like you're the people in Philadelphia, because I was saying before we started recording, we go back to like the Bodog days. And I remember when you fought in Atlantic City, like you would bring so many people from Philadelphia down there. You were like one of the first guys who had an entire city behind you. We don't see that as much these days. It's usually the country thing, which I get. But you had like the entire,
Yeah.
again, when I think of Philadelphia, I think of Rocky, I think of cheesesteaks, and I think of Eddie Alvarez.
Yeah, so Philadelphia, I think we have 5 million. I think there's 5 million deep in Philadelphia, or maybe even more. But respectively, that's a country. Like some of these countries out there, that's more people than some of these small countries. So when I used to fight down in Atlantic City or even anywhere close to home, everybody in Philadelphia would pack cheese buses. They would pack the cheese buses, put the a keg on the cheese bus, and drink and head to the casinos down in Atlantic City, and get off the buses, kind of watch the fights, and then go after party. So we did that quite a bit until I got these bigger contracts and I started traveling the world. So I'm excited to kind of get back to that. I already know friends, family, already ordering the buses, already tailgating, already getting ready to sell out the Wells Fargo come January 25th. And I believe our first day of ticket sales, pre-sale, we sold like 6 or 7 thousand tickets alone. So it'll be a sellout event. It could possibly be the largest combat event in Wells Fargo history.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I know that like watching the growth of BKFC over these last few years, like it's been pretty amazing to see. It does feel very kind of reminiscent a little bit of like how the UFC kind of grew and grew and now is like this juggernaut. Like I said this on Twitter the other day, and I'm not trying to knock other promotions, but I said what separates BKFC from a lot of these other organizations, and I know it's not MMA, but I said BKFC sells tickets. You go to a lot of these shows,
Yeah.
they're struggling to get 1,000 people in the door. BKFC selling 5,000 tickets here, 8,000 tickets here. They did the fight over in Spain in the bullfighting arena. And as you said, I think first day sales over, like you said, 7,000 tickets and 18,000 people. Like the only other organization that could go into Philadelphia and do that is the UFC. That's it. It's wild to see how big
Yeah.
BKFC has gotten.
Yeah, and I look, another thing is they're not trying to compete with the UFC. And I think where a lot of these other guys go wrong. They're trying to compete with a 500-pound gorilla. It's like, why are you competing? There's nothing to compete with. They are some BKFC is something different, completely different, trying to carve out its own little thing, and trying to be different, not trying to be the same, not trying to be like anything else. And that's why it's doing well. People can connect with it. Everybody knows what it's like. Well, not everybody, but people can realize or understand getting hit with a bare fist. Some of these moves, wrestling or jujitsu, they don't know what it is, and they kind of go blank once that goes on in an MMA fight. They go get popcorn, go get a soda. But in bare knuckle fighting, everybody's attentive. They know what can go on very quickly. It gets very violent, very fast, and it's fun to watch.
Yeah, I actually had a conversation with Kai Stewart, one of the BKFC champions. This is going back last year, and we were talking about how BKFC has kind of become the second biggest player in combat sports, because it's hard to say about boxing because there's just so many promotions and it's just hard. So I kind of think like UFC and BKFC like number one and two. And I said, and he brought up a good point. He's like, one of the reasons why BKFC is so successful is we're giving you something different. Bare knuckle fighting is unlike anything else out there. And he's like it or not, when you watch a PFL card, it's still MMA, but it's just not the UFC. And he's like, that's what I think attracts people to BKFC. Now, you've been around, you've fought everywhere, Eddie. Do you think that's a fair statement? Like, why BKFC has found that audience is they're doing something, they're giving they're giving the fans something different that's just not another MMA promotion that's not the UFC.
Yeah, different, and I think the results get done quickly. Every fight goes 4 to 6 minutes. I mean, and then we're on to the next fight, on to the next fight, on to the next fight, and you don't need to connect with the fighter. In UFC and some of these boxing cards, people show up just for the co-main and the main. That's it, because they know the fighter, that fighter's popular, and they can connect with them. They don't even watch the rest of the card because they don't know him. You don't need to connect with the fighter with BKFC because you connect with the fight itself. You want to watch from the prelims all the way up to the main event because the fights themselves are crazy, chaotic, and wild. I've been to cards and I felt it. And I knew right away that this is going to be something that's going to hit. And when I really kind of came to that realization was me and Chad Mendez fought each other in Colorado, I believe it was. I looked around the stadium. Kamaru Usman was there. Justin Gaethje was there. Conor McGregor, Trevor Whitman, Cowboy Cerrone. I looked around and I went, holy shit, we are entertaining the most entertaining fighters in the world. Where do they go to be entertained? They go to BKFC to be entertained.
Absolutely, absolutely. So now, when it came to this Philly card, Eddie, like there was no doubt you were going to be the guy, you were going to be the main event. So can I imagine when you talked to BKFC, did the opponent even matter? Obviously, Jeremy Stevens is a veteran; he's been around. I think it makes a lot of sense in terms of name value and things like that. But can I imagine for you, it was just about Philly or die? Like that was all that really mattered. Didn't the opponent wasn't as important as getting the chance to finally return home and fight in Philly?
No, it's just bring somebody down a tunnel. It wouldn't have mattered either way. Whoever's coming in that tunnel is coming to lose. That's a that's a fact. Whoever's walking out of the tunnel that night, if Jeremy gets hurt and don't show up and they put someone else in, they're gonna lose too. That's just you're at the Wells Fargo in Philadelphia. It's just that's going to be a real rough night for whoever else comes out and is going to be my opponent that night. So I'm excited about the opportunity. I'm glad Philly has kind of gotten behind me, and I'm glad they picked me for their champion for the night of the 25th. So whoever it is, it is. I respect Jeremy. I respect what he's done in the sport. We try to look for a bunch of opponents. Jeremy was the first one willing, ready to go. So he's the guy, and if it's him or if it's anyone else, whoever it is, it is.
You could be fighting a guy like, let's say, a Wonder Boy or a Vicente Luque, who are like the nicest guys in the world, and they'd still get booed in Philly. But what did you make of Jeremy kind of going the like dissing Philly route at the presser? Like I was kind of shocked. Like he just kept taking aim, and you're like, that's not the right approach, man. Like he was going to get booed no matter what. We know that, but like he went the attack Philly route, and I was kind of surprised he decided to go there. I mean, credit to him. I guess he's leaning into it because he knows he's going to get booed. There's not going to be any cheers for him that night.
Yeah, that was brave of him. I mean, look, you should anybody coming to Philadelphia should kind of humble themselves because it's not like it's not a I want to say it's a sports town where it's sports friendly. It's serious to these fans. I'm nervous for people when they walk around with a Dallas Cowboys jersey by the stadium in South Philly. I'm sincerely nervous for them. I'm like, I don't think they think this is like a fun sports outing. You're you're taking some you could possibly get knocked out walking to the stadium by someone and they're filming and they think it's funny. That's Philadelphia. That's just the way shit is around here. So coming that hard and playing that hard of a heel, and then walking out the front door with no security by yourself. It's it was brave. It was brave of them. Yeah, it was brave of them.
I love Philly. I used to live in Pittsburgh and I go to Philly all the time. I love Philadelphia. It's an incredible city. Like every time the UFC went there, I went there. I love Philadelphia. It's an incredible town. And I remember those crowds there. Like that crowd, like 18,000 people packing in the Wells Fargo Center. Like, do you allow yourself a moment to think about like what it's going to be like to walk out, or do you have to shut that out because and just soak it in the moment? Because I've heard a lot of guys say like what I heard a lot of guys say like they don't like hometown fights because it ratchets up a lot of pressure. You got your friends and family in the front row, everyone's counting on you to be there, everyone's counting on you to be the star, and they're like, man, it does put a lot of pressure on you. Have you thought about that? Do you not want to think about that? Because like the atmosphere when you walk out in front of 18,000 screaming fans is going to be insane. Like it's going to be special.
Yeah, I mean, I've never I want to say I don't think I ever disappointed. I'm gonna be honest with you. Throughout my entire career, there's been one time, and everybody knows the Connor fight where I went into somewhat near my hometown, and I didn't show up, and I that was probably the one time that really shocked even myself because throughout my entire career, anywhere home or anywhere nearby, like whenever that spotlight's on me and whenever the stakes are big, I that's when I show up big. That's usually when I show up big. I fought all over the world, Russia, Japan, Tokyo, Costa Rica, all over. And during these moments or when I may have had a hiccup or something like that. But in my hometown, Atlantic City, Philadelphia, New York, all these places, I usually show up big, man. And I'm looking forward to feeling the spirit of the Philadelphia fans behind me at the Wells Fargo on the 25th of January.
It's going to be crazy. It's going to be. Can I ask? I'm curious, Eddie, because I know you've mentioned this before. Now that Conor's involved in BKFC, Conor keeps saying like he wants to fight, he wants to do it. I talked to Dave Feldman. Dave Feldman said I think he's serious about doing it now that he's got like a stake in the company. I don't know if you saw recently. Now he's trying to promote some boxing match with Logan Paul. I don't know. Is there a world like? Do you actually believe that we'll ever see Conor do a bare knuckle fight, or do you think that's just? I mean, I'm not going to fault it for promoting it. It's great promotion. Like get people interested, but like I think there's a real world where a lot of people say like Conor's never going to fight again, period, much less bare knuckle.
Yeah, I just realistically, I think he has the two fights still left on his UFC contract, and I just know how difficult it is about especially when you're really that valuable to a company. I haven't been as valuable as Connor, but like back when I was basically Bellator's main guy, I know how difficult it is to get out of them contracts. They don't make it easy. And for him, making the company hundreds of millions of dollars, I don't think it's going to be an easy exit. So I just think he still has them two more fights with UFC. I don't know I'm not sure how old Connor is, but he's not getting any younger. So it's going to be tough for him to fight them fights out and move on to another contract. So realistically, I don't know if he could fight BKFC. And if he does, it'll be when he's maybe older.
Yeah. So let me ask you, I remember going back to one of your one championship fights. I can't remember which one it was. It was during the pandemic when they were doing like the virtual media thing. And I remember asking you questions, and somebody on that call at that point was like, something to you, and they said something about you retiring. And I remember you looked so angry and agitated when they asked you that question because you were like right on the cusp of a title shot or whatever it was. And you're like, why would you ask that? Now I've heard you address the question about retirement because I think the narrative is you're getting a chance to fight in Philly. Like this would be a cool way to go out. And I just spoke to Cub Swanson yesterday after his big win, and I said, you know, would this be kind of the perfect way to go? He's like, yeah, but he's like, I'm not going to make that decision right now. I'm just going to let it go. But I understand. Like we all want our heroes to go out on a high note. We all remember like Robbie Lawler had like the perfect ending. He goes out there, knocks out Nico Price, and he walks away. And unfortunately, you know this, Eddie, 9 times out of 10, guys don't leave in that way. Most guys are kind of carried out versus leaving on their own accord. But so I'm not going to ask you, like, is this your retirement fight? Because I know you've said like you're not going to make a big deal out of it when it happens. You're going to make that decision with your wife, and it'll come somewhere down the road. But in an ideal world, if you go out there and you fight in front of 18,000 screaming, insane Philly fans, you knock out Jeremy Stevens. if you were writing a script, would that be like the perfect script if you were going to end your career there?
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be storybook. It'd be completely storybook, but I just think I don't think there is any right perfect way to go out and be honest with you. I just don't think there is. I think and because it'd be saying that one fight would determine your entire career, and that's you can't do that. One fight will never sum up who I am, whether I won or lost it, right? So like you could never say, "Oh, that was one big win, you should go now," or "That was one big loss, you should go now." I'm defined by a sum of 20 years of fighting and what I've done and the kind of work I put into this. So you can never sum it up through one fight anyway. So yes, going at the Wells Fargo, shutting it down at the Wells Fargo, 18,000 screaming fans. It'd be an absolute storybook to do it at home, but I'll never be defined by one fight. You know, one win, one loss. I'll always be looked at as someone who challenged himself, traveled the entire world looking for the baddest motherfuckers to fight, and trying to become world champion whatever promotion I was with. That's what I like to be defined by, not by just one singular fight, one singular outing, you know?
Yeah, well, I actually love what Cubs said, and also got like Joe Lozon what he said. Like I talked to him last year, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm probably done fighting, but I'm not going to retire. I'm just going to wait and see. You never know, something cool may come up. Maybe the UFC comes to Boston, I get to fight at home." I kind of like that attitude where he's just like, "I'll leave the door open. Maybe I'll never fight again, but I got to get the sense like, hey, like if an opportunity comes up, and they're like, hey, here's a bunch of money, let's do the Mike Perry rematch, or here's a bunch of money, do this." It's all about timing and opportunity, right? Like that's got to play a part in anything, any decision you make.
Yeah, and I've gotten to fight so long. I mean, I started when I was 19. I'm 20, 21 years into this game, and I've kept myself healthy. I kept steroid free my entire career. I think that's given me longevity. I never had a college wrestling career. That's given me more longevity. I've taken care of my body. And I never, if I had injuries, I would listen to my body and kind of peel back. I wouldn't fight through injuries. So there's a couple things that I've done differently than a lot of regular fighters that allow me to fight so long and have the career I've had. So yeah, I just kind of keep things open. It'll allow me to fight as long as I have.
Yeah, I mean, coming out of yeah, I know you had after the Perry fight, you had to deal with the orbital bone and everything, but like, look at this. Like a year ago, bare knuckle wasn't even legal in Pennsylvania, and now it's legal, and you're getting a chance to fight in Philadelphia. So like, I'm sure you could have booked a fight, a different fight, whatever, but like, it's all about timing. Look at what happened here now, because like I said, a year ago, you couldn't even do this in Pennsylvania. Now it's legal, and you're actually going to debut the first ever card in Philly. Like that's what we're talking about, right? Like the timing and the opportunity of this.
Yeah, we're gonna be able to shut it down, man. I'll be able to make it up to my fans, my Philadelphia fans. I uh I look, I got my shot at Madison Square Garden. I hate it. I hate it the way I performed. I hated everything about it. But there's only one stadium better than Madison Square Garden. That's the Wells Fargo in Philadelphia, baby.
Absolutely, absolutely. Can I ask, like, because I'm curious, Eddie, because before you were UFC champion, you were so synonymous with Bellator. You kind of helped put the Bellator brand on the map, and you were the face of Bellator for
Yeah.
many years before you left and went there.
We got
I,
all that back here. That one over there and that one over there.
yeah, I'm curious. Like, I know I mean, you've long since moved on, and so much has changed in that. But like, because I know you talked about this when Bellator sold, like kind of like the sadness of just seeing that in. But I'm sure you've seen this recently with a lot of the Bellator guys complaining about not getting fights. Does it bum you out when you see things like that in the sport, when like guys want opportunities and they're not getting them? I mean, it's just the nature of the beast. Like we just saw this new organization launch, the GFL, and I hope everyone gets paid. But just by nature of being around this business, I get skeptical because I'm like, you're sinking all this money in. Like, is it going to pay off? It's kind of hard not to have that attitude when you've seen so many players come and go in the sport.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to be an advisor to a lot of young fighters and like kind of put them game on the sport itself and the business behind it because it can be a little bit sticky. Sometimes people have agents and the agents work in the likeness of the actual promotion and they think they're working in the likeness of the fighter. So it can get sticky there. There's agents out there who do that. So the fighter themselves don't even have the right guidance, and they think they do. So these promotions that are coming out who haven't stood the test of time, who don't have a history of putting on shows, you got to be a little skeptical. You got to be careful. Some of these guys get in contracts where they're offered a lot of money, but they don't understand that until they actually fight, they don't get the money. But the promotion themselves, they get to go out there and shop at the TV networks and all these streaming services that they have this great asset under contract. But the truth is, until the fight happens, you don't get the money. But the promotion gets to go out and get their money because they shop you to the TV networks, to the streaming networks, and then they get a pile of money, and you're under contract. So now it's the promotion's time to buck up and let you fight. And sometimes they'll just keep you under contract to get more TV money, more streaming service money, and have you sit and wait on the sidelines. So you just gotta be careful out there, man.
Yeah, it's funny. I talked to Ben Rothwell because he's obviously going to be the co-main event on this card. And he was talking about, he's like, how smart is it what BKFC is doing with this Philly card? Obviously, you're headlining, you're the biggest star, you are the Philly guy. But when you guys did the press conference, it was all Philly guys, except for Jeremy Stevens. Like, it was all Philly guys. He's like, that's how you build a promotion. Bring in the local guys because I guarantee you, like, the guys who are there, that press conference may not be household names, but they're household names in Philadelphia, and the crowd's going to come out to see them in Philadelphia. And then you kind of decorate the card around with other names like Ben Rothwell and obviously the title fight, things like that. But he's like, there is a method to do it and find success. He's just like, unfortunately, a lot of these organizations just pump all this money in there and then they go broke in like a year or 2 years or whatever because they don't really have a game plan that pays off. He's like, BKFC is doing it right. When they go to Philly, Eddie Alvarez and a ton of Philly guys, you're going to get the Philly crowd out there for that. He's like, some places just don't understand that.
Yeah, I mean, we have a list of guys. We got Pat Brady, we got Joey DeWaco on the card, we got Johnny Garb on the card. These are local guys. You're gonna see a lot of our talent. I think we have I mean, Miguel Cartagena. I don't know if he's got a fight yet. Um Man, I'm trying to think of a list of names, but you're gonna see some real local Philly talent. And when it comes to boxing in Philadelphia, it's high level. So I mean, people are going to be able to get a treat come January 25th at the Wells Fargo. It's
I,
going to be Philly's finest out there.
I can't wait. Can I ask real quick? I know also you just recently opened your facility out there, so you've got a new gym out there, the Underground King. So how's that been going? Because I saw a lot on Instagram the grand opening, and it seems like you're already doing very well out there.
We've been mobbed, man. Yeah, we're right out in Bucks County, right outside Philadelphia. We got 20,000 square foot performance institute. It's not even, I won't even call it a gym. It's a performance institute. We have recovery rooms. We have a whole side dedicated to strength conditioning, like functional strength conditioning for combat athletes or just any athlete in general. And then we have a whole nother side with like 12,000 square foot with mats, cage, full size bare knuckle ring. So yeah, it's been mobbed. The response been incredible, and ever since the grand opening, I mean, more and more people are coming through. We have
That's
my coaches I've trained with my entire career: Ray Robinson, Ryan Cafaro, Mark Henry comes in and does mat pads with me there. So I'm getting to share my coaches and everything with the public.
Do you think when it's one day in the future, when it is all said and done, do you think you will transition and be a full time coach? I mean, obviously you got a family and kids and everything, but like, do you feel like coaching is going to be your future? Bringing up the next generation of fighters because. I mean, you have so much knowledge beyond just the actual like the actual fight game, of course. But like, I've always admired you for the way you've approached this as a business too. Like when you left the UFC, you took the best opportunity to go to one championship. When you decide you want to come back to the United States, you found the best opportunity at BKFC. Like you've got a very smart mind, not only for the fight game, but for the business side of this game too.
Yeah, I think that's the idea. You like this sport's giving me so much, it's my turn to give it all back. So I'm not even saying not even upon retirement. Right after this fight, I'll be in the gym, day and night, mentoring, coaching, helping advise kids. on their careers. Um, I'll be doing pretty much it all inside of our facility. I'd love to train. I'd love to get a small promotion going and then advise, help kind of manage the next UFC champion, next possible UFC champion.
I love it. I love it. And it's funny
Or
because I remember
BKFC champion.
there you go. There you go. It's funny because like when you started, you were the guy in Philly, and now like I'm sure you would get excited. Like so many guys are from Philly now. Like there's a ton of great fighters coming out of the Philly area. So it's like I know that's a great fight town, a great opportunity you're out there. And again, you've got so much knowledge to pass along. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think you should get a business class, Eddie. Like honestly, you need to get a business class to like tell fighters how to invest their money and how to like prepare for the future, because you've been doing that kind of since day one. Like you've always kind of had this idea like what the future is going to be, and you know as well as I do, a lot of guys don't plan for that.
Yeah, maybe the fight business 101. No, I get calls from a bunch of guys for stocks, or hey Ed, I got a couple dollars here. What do you think I should do it here? But yeah, Philly's really on a tear. I mean, they even down in Philly, Marquez, John Marquez has got a bunch of killers down there. Sean Brady, they got Joey Pfeiffer. The list goes on and on of the guys down at Marquez's they're killing it. I believe they have a whole list of Uzbekistan guys as well. I knew Joey when he was 4 years old. Um, I think Sean Brady was training on Frankfurt Ave, uh, not far, maybe when he was 16 years old. And Pat Sabatini. Now we're seeing all these guys. You're seeing all of them, all these Philadelphia guys about to completely take over the UFC. It's like for me, it's a blessing, and I'm glad to kind of join the sport when I did before it's kind of blew up the way it has. But I'm glad to see Philadelphia as a fighting town, and for long it's been known for boxing, but now we're on the cusp of exploding. We're going to become the new Dagestan.
Last thing, Eddie, let me close out on this. And again, I know you probably can't answer this question until you get out there, but I got to ask it. I always remember one of the craziest atmospheres I've ever been in for a fight was when I went to Montreal and I saw George St. Pierre walk out for his rematch with Matt Serra. And I remember Ed Herman was standing next to me on Media Row. He had fought that night. He came back out, and the crowd was so loud when GSP walked out, I couldn't hear his music. I literally could not hear his walkout. And you know how loud they play stuff in the arena. Like, I could not hear his walkout music. And me and Ed looked at each other like, holy crap, like this is insane. I feel like Philadelphia, Wells Fargo Center in January is going to be similar. So, I mean, you got like, that's going to be like the craziest reception you've ever gotten, right? Like, cause now, like, even when you fought in Bellator back in the day, like that was a big deal. But now you obviously you've accomplished so much since then. Can you even think about like what that's going to be like? Because I feel like that atmosphere is going to be the craziest maybe ever.
No, just hearing it makes the hair on my neck stand up. I'm like, it's. I'm gonna go there. I'm actually gonna go there within the next couple weeks, watch some Sixers games, and kind of get used to the stadium, get in the back and stuff like that, and hang out, just to kind of take in that feeling and know what it's kind of gonna be like. But we already got a full size bare knuckle ring in my facility. So we're kind of getting real comfortable in that, sleeping in that, living in that, and now we're gonna hang out the Wells Fargo a little bit, kind of get used to it.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait, Eddie. I'm so glad this is happening for you. Like I said, as soon as I got announced, I was like, oh man, I'm so happy because again, I didn't realize how long it had been since you fought in Philadelphia. Again, you were the guy. Like I said, going all the way back to our Bodog days, like you were the guy when you fought in Atlantic City. The entire city of Philly would come to Atlantic City to see you fight before you could fight at home in Philadelphia. So I can't wait for this fight. I can't wait for this atmosphere. This feels like one of those moments where like Jeremy Stevens would have to bring out a sledgehammer to have a chance with you in Philadelphia because I feel like this is going to be your night. But obviously, as always, man, I appreciate you taking the time. Have a great training camp. Have a good holiday with the family, of course. And man, cannot wait for January to see you back in action and see you do this thing in Philadelphia.
Thank you, Damon. Have a Merry Christmas, brother.